A heritage property in Keilor is up for sale, fit with a 19th century Scottish castle.
Would you buy a real medieval castle for exactly $1? It sounds like the ultimate real estate dream. But this tiny price is hiding problems that even scare away billionaires. Around the world, stunning fortresses, fairy tale châteaux, and huge old estates are sitting completely abandoned because their price tags are almost an illusion. From a strange valley in Turkey filled with 732 unfinished castles to a dramatic cliffside fortress in Japan, each place carries hidden problems that terrify potential buyers. Today, we are counting down 20 jaw-dropping, spectacular castles around the world that absolutely nobody wants to buy, even for a single dollar. Let's dive in. Burj Al Babas, Turkey. Deep in the hills of Mudurnu Valley in Turkey, there is something that feels almost unreal at first sight. Hundreds of identical castle-style villas stand packed together, repeating the same shape again and again, like one design copied across the entire valley. In total, there are 732 mini-palaces, all lined in perfect repetition. From a distance, it looks like a luxury fairy tale town. But the closer you get, the illusion starts to break. This was meant to be a $200 million luxury project for wealthy foreign buyers. But before anyone moved in, the company behind it went bankrupt, and everything stopped overnight. Now the castles are empty inside, just raw concrete, exposed wires, and hollow rooms. There is no water, no electricity, and no basic infrastructure across the valley. And you can't just buy one either, because the whole project is stuck in bankruptcy and legal trouble. Technically, it feels tempting, but in reality, you'd be buying a broken system, not a home. Fixing it would mean rebuilding an entire town from scratch, and that's exactly why it's completely empty. Tiffany Castle, USA. Built in 1908 in Kansas City, Tiffany Castle was created by Dr. Flavel B. Tiffany, an eye doctor who was obsessed with Scottish-style fortresses. From the outside, it looks like a heavy stone stronghold, but its history is far more unusual than it first appears. During the Prohibition era, it became an underground jazz nightclub and speakeasy, hidden away from public attention. Over the decades, the castle went through repeated damage and neglect. At one point, a frustrated owner even threatened to blow the entire structure up due to constant vandalism. The building was later hit by fires twice, leaving much of the interior destroyed and turning it into a hollow stone shell. Today, buying it is not really a simple choice because the castle is heavily damaged. So even at a surprisingly low price, what you're actually looking at is years of destruction, broken interiors, and a structure that's barely holding itself together. And on top of that, strict preservation rules make any real changes slow, expensive, and complicated. Granite Loma, USA. This is Granite Loma in Michigan, and at first glance, it looks like a giant wooden dream cabin sitting peacefully near Lake Superior. But the reality behind it is very different. Built between 1919 and 1923, it is officially the largest log cabin in the world, covering more than 26,000 square feet. It wasn't built just as a luxury home. After being rejected by a local elite club, Louis G. Kaufman built it as a way to prove a point, turning the entire estate into a personal statement rather than just a place to live. Everything about it was oversized. Huge wooden halls, custom interiors, and space designed for staff, guests, and luxury vehicles. Even President Gerald Ford once showed interest in turning it into a retreat, but the deal never happened. Today, the problem is not just it is survival. The harsh Lake Superior winters make heating extremely expensive, and the aging wooden structure needs constant care. On top of that, strict preservation rules limit what can even be changed. Casa Loma, Canada. At first glance, this castle looks like a real-life fairy tale sitting in the middle of a modern city. Built between 1911 and 1914 by Sir Henry Pellet. It has 98 rooms, hidden tunnels, and towering Gothic walls that once represented pure luxury and power. But the story behind it is not about war or time, it is about money. Pellat spent a fortune building his dream castle, over $3.5 million back then, which would be more than $100 million today. The problem started when the running costs took over his life. The taxes alone became overwhelming, and the heating system reportedly consumed hundreds of tons of coal just to keep the place warm. He eventually lost everything and had to abandon the home completely. Today, it is owned by the city and works as a tourist site. Buying it as a private residence is nearly impossible, not just because of cost, but because it comes with constant maintenance, strict rules, and crowds of visitors right outside your windows. French Provincial Castle, USA. This place doesn't feel like it belongs in Michigan. It looks like a European chateau dropped into a quiet suburban street, with tall limestone walls, sharp turrets, and a large slate roof designed to copy old French castles. It was meant to be a full replica of a 16th-century chateau. The owner even brought craftsmen from Europe to shape the stone and make it look as real as possible. But before the inside was finished, a financial scandal hit, and the project was suddenly abandoned. Inside, nothing was ever completed. Just bare walls, exposed wires, and unfinished rooms that were never lived in. Honestly, any sane buyer would never touch it, even if it were offered for a tiny price. It's stuck in foreclosure issues, heavy taxes, and legal complications that make it far more trouble than it looks worth. Kinloch Castle, Scotland. This doesn't feel like a normal abandoned building. It feels like time stopped inside it. Built between 1897 and 1900 on the Isle of Rum, it was once a symbol of extreme wealth, filled with luxury rooms, rare furniture, and even a steam-powered machine that could recreate an entire orchestra. But today, that same place is falling apart in slow motion. Damp air, dry rot, and heavy insect infestations are eating into the structure, and historical artifacts that are rotting where they stand. What makes it even more surprising is the price. It was officially listed for just £1, but that number is misleading, because no normal buyer can actually step in and take it. Anyone interested would need to commit millions just for repairs, and strict heritage laws mean almost nothing inside can be changed or removed. Hurst Castle, England. This castle was originally built by King Henry VIII as a powerful coastal fortress to defend the country from invasion. But in recent years, nature started winning the fight. The ground beneath it is constantly shifting, and the coastline is slowly being eaten away by the ocean. In 2021, a massive section of the outer brick wall suddenly collapsed straight into the sea, leaving parts of the castle exposed and vulnerable to waves. What makes it even more serious is its location. The entire structure sits on a fragile shingle spit, meaning one strong storm can reshape the land overnight. Even though emergency repairs have already cost millions, they only act as temporary protection. Today, owning it is not realistic. The castle is highly protected, extremely expensive to maintain, and constantly at risk of being taken back by the sea, making it a losing battle for any private buyer. Montefiore Castle, Italy. Built in the 14th century, this giant castle wasn't built for comfort or decoration at all. It was a military fortress designed to control the entire region from its elevated position. But its story takes a strange turn in modern times. The castle was sealed and reopened multiple times over 17 long years of slow, complicated restoration work. During that period, local legends grew stronger, claiming the fortress is haunted by the spirits of Costanza Malatesta and her German lover, both killed inside centuries ago. Inside, enormous halls still hold Renaissance frescoes and vaulted ceilings that haven't been touched for generations. Owning it today is far from simple. Strict heritage protection means nearly nothing inside can be altered, and its steep hilltop location makes even basic repairs a logistical challenge. Even now, it stands more as a protected monument than a livable property, constantly demanding effort just to survive. Casa Alamanda, Spain. This is Casa Alamanda, and it looks like a quiet village house sitting in the hills. But its history is very different. The building was originally a grand townhouse and local shop, but it was abandoned for over 35 years until nature slowly took over. Vines grew across the courtyard, walls weakened, and the entire place became almost hidden under decay. For decades, no one wanted to touch it, and it was left frozen in time. The turning point came when a British TV crew bought the ruined property and turned it into a renovation project for a reality show, trying to bring it back to life step by step. Inside, parts of it are now beautifully rebuilt, with detailed ceilings, restored rooms, and decorative spaces inspired by historic Spanish design. But not everything was completed. Large sections still remain unfinished, raw, and empty. Even today, it is not a practical home. Its remote mountain location, limited infrastructure, and heavy restoration needs make it more of a project than a livable property, which is why it still struggles to find a real, long-term owner. Predjama Castle, Slovenia. High up in Slovenia's cliffs, Predjama Castle is built straight into the mouth of a massive cave, making it look like the rock itself is holding the fortress in place. It is the largest cave castle in the world and one of the most unusual strongholds ever created. Its history is filled with dramatic stories. The most famous is about Erazem Lueger, a knight who held the castle against a full army for over a year. But his resistance ended in a strange betrayal when a servant revealed his position and a single cannon shot was fired through the castle's toilet chamber. Inside, there are no proper rear walls because the cave itself becomes part of the structure. Hidden tunnels and deep stone passages run beneath it, while cold air constantly flows through the rock, making parts of the castle damp and freezing. Today, it cannot be privately owned. It is a protected landmark and a major tourist site. Also, the constant cave moisture makes maintenance extremely expensive and difficult. Bannerman Castle, USA. Bannerman Castle looks like a European fairy tale ruin, but its real purpose was far more dangerous. It was built by Francis Bannerman, a military surplus dealer who turned the island into a massive storage depot for weapons, ammunition, and war equipment. Over time, the place became packed with explosives and unstable materials, more like a floating arsenal than a castle. Then, in 1920, everything changed. A lightning strike triggered a massive explosion that tore through parts of the structure and scattered military shells into the river. After that, fires, storms, and collapse slowly reduced it to the unstable ruins seen today. Even now, the island is not something you can simply own or live in. It is state-controlled, surrounded by safety hazards, and parts of it are completely unsafe to enter. Kimball Castle, USA. Benjamin Ames, Kimball, a New Hampshire railroad tycoon, built Kimball Castle after being inspired by the architecture he saw while traveling along Germany's Rhine River. It was meant to be a romantic estate, but it ended up becoming something else entirely. After being passed down through inheritance, the property was left to an animal welfare charity, along with money meant to turn it into a nature preserve. But things went wrong. The funds disappeared, and the estate was left abandoned for decades. With no upkeep, the castle slowly decayed until it became unsafe and empty. Urban explorers and trespassers often broke in, and the site became so dangerous that police had to step in multiple times. Then came the final blow. In 2025, a sudden fire destroyed what was left of the structure, leaving only ruins behind. Today, the land is tied up in legal restrictions, safety concerns, and heritage rules, making it almost impossible for any buyer to use it practically. Eltz Castle, Germany. High in a narrow valley in Germany, this castle looks like something frozen in time, almost untouched by the outside world. But unlike most ancient fortresses, it was never lost, never abandoned, and never changed owners through conquest or sale. Instead, it has stayed in the same family for more than 850 years, passed down through dozens of generations like an unbroken chain. At one point, even different branches of the family were forced to live together inside the same walls, sharing space under strict internal agreements just to keep the property stable through medieval conflicts. Over time, it kept growing upward because the land around it is so tight, turning into a stack of towers and rooms built into the rock itself. Today, it still belongs to the same bloodline, and that alone makes it impossible for any outsider to ever buy it, no matter the price. Château Frontenac, Canada. Looking over the cliffs of Quebec City, this building almost looks like a royal castle dropped straight out of Europe, but it was never meant to defend a kingdom. It was created in 1893 by a railway company, designed more like a luxury advertisement than a fortress, meant to attract wealthy travelers across Canada. Over time, it became one of the most photographed hotels in the world, with endless corridors, massive halls, and a layout so large that walking from one end to the other feels like crossing a small city. But there is also something unsettling in its history. Guests have long reported strange encounters during the night, especially sightings of a silent figure often described as the woman in white, appearing at the edge of beds without a sound. And that is only part of what people claim happens inside these walls. Castle of Good Hope, South Africa. Built in the 1660s by the Dutch East India Company, this pentagon-shaped fortress in Cape Town doesn't look like a modern city landmark at first. It looks like a heavy reminder from another time, but underneath its stone walls lies something far more disturbing. Deep below the surface is a dark underground cell where prisoners were once chained during floods, left in complete darkness as water rose around them. Survival there wasn't about escape. It was about not drowning. Over the years, the castle has also collected strange stories, from sudden deaths of officials with no clear cause to legends of a bell that is never supposed to ring. Even guards today still report unexplained figures moving along the ramparts at night, as if parts of the old history never truly left this place. Chillingham Castle, England. In northern England stands a castle that feels less like a home and more like a record of centuries of violence. Built in the 13th century on the Anglo-Scottish border, it carries stories of war, punishment, and thousands of deaths inside its walls. Some of its darkest tales come from an old execution chamber, where prisoners were reportedly killed in large numbers during border conflicts. And the aftermath left such anger that the castle's own executioner was eventually hunted down and killed by locals. Inside, visitors still talk about unexplained sounds, sudden cold spots, and even the so-called Blue Boy, a spirit linked to a hidden discovery made inside the stone walls. Beneath it all lies a deeper problem. Even after restoration, the structure is so old and heavily protected that turning it into anything modern is nearly impossible, no matter how much money is involved. Charleville Castle, Ireland. Deep in the Irish countryside stands a neo-Gothic castle, surrounded by thick woodland and an ancient oak tree that locals have feared for centuries. Stories say that whenever a branch falls from this old tree, something tragic follows in the family tied to the castle. One lightning strike in the 1960s split the tree completely, and not long after, the last known heir of that bloodline passed away, feeding the legend even more. Inside the castle itself, the atmosphere feels just as heavy. A long history of abandonment left parts of it exposed to rain and decay for years, while reports of strange sounds and a childlike presence moving through the grand staircase still circulate today. But the real challenge isn't just the stories. Keeping a structure this old standing means constant restoration work. strict preservation rules, and ongoing maintenance so expensive that ownership quickly becomes more of a financial burden than a dream. Himeji Castle, Japan. This is a perfect samurai fortress that even survived wartime firebombing without a single scar. But its history almost took a very different turn. After the collapse of the old shogunate, the entire castle was once sold at auction for the price of what today would be around $1,000. The buyer didn't even want to live in it. The plan was to tear it down and sell its wood and tiles. But the demolition turned out to be too expensive, and that failure accidentally saved the structure from disappearing forever. Inside, the castle carries darker legends too, including a well linked to a servant girl whose tragic story is still told through whispers of counting and screams that visitors say they sometimes hear near the water, as if the past never fully left the grounds. Houska Castle, Czech Republic. Deep inside the forests of the Czech Republic, this 13th century castle feels less like a fortress and more like something built around a secret. There is no water source nearby, no real kitchen system, and the location itself makes no strategic sense for a fortress. Yet the structure still rises over a deep limestone pit that local stories once described as a passage to something unnatural. To seal it, the castle chapel was placed directly above it, almost like a lock over a buried door. Before the walls were fully built, prisoners were even lowered into the pit to test its depth. One man reportedly returned alive, but completely shaken, claiming he saw things no one should see. And even today, the castle carries that same heavy reputation, making it one of the most avoided and unsettling sites in Europe. Leap Castle, Ireland. Putting this castle at number 1 wasn't about beauty or size. It was about how deep the history of violence and fear runs inside its walls. Built in 15th century Ireland by the O'Carroll clan, it carries one of the darkest reputations of any fortress in Europe. One of its most infamous events happened inside a chapel, where a family conflict turned violent and ended in a brutal killing during a religious service, leaving behind a story that still defines the castle today. Years later, a hidden chamber was discovered beneath the same structure, revealing a drop into a forgotten dungeon filled with human remains, showing just how many lives may have ended there in silence. Even today, people report strange presences and unexplained moments inside its halls. And honestly, even if it were ever available, it's the kind of place you would never want to buy, no matter the price. So, these were 20 of the world's most avoided castles, no matter how low the price goes. Which one shocked you the most? And if you're an adventure seeker, which of these would you actually love to buy if it were available? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like it. And subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss more crazy videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.